Behind me is the location of Boston's former Scientology headquarters. In 2008, it became the target of Anonymous's worldwide Chanology protest. Today, we're going to look at the story of Anonymous's evolution involving Chanology in the words of one of its key hacktivists and spokespersons, Gregg Housh.
We want to be the good guys, we're still not the good guys. The internet hate machine is alive and well. News channels are now writing about it on their websites and whatnot. Like, wait, what? And we went from a couple hundred people to 10,000 people, all claiming to be Anons. We aren't scared of you. Your fair game stuff that all these ex-Scientologists are telling us about, don't bother us. You've lived on this planet however long you've lived, and I would hope that one of your driving forces is that when you've died, the world is better off because you were there.
We're headed to meet Gregg at his home in Malden, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. This area has a history of both revolution and tech innovation. So, sounds like the perfect place for a hacktivist to call home to me.
Hello.
Hey,
how's it going?
Josh.
Greg, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You guys want to come in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, this is a hell of a setup. What do we got here?
We've got my main machine over here. This is the one that I do all my work from, all my streaming from. So I sit here all day pretty much. It's a pretty good setup. I'm really happy with it.
You told me at one point that you think the everyday person has a misconception about where Anonymous actually started. Could you explain what you mean by that?
A lot of people, especially even in the anonymous space these days, look back to some of the bigger news splashes. They look back to lulzsec, they look back to 2013, 2012, maybe even as new as 2014, but they look in that range and think, oh yeah, Anon's from around then. And you know, they're a decade off. You know, the initial rumblings of what would become Anonymous goes all the way back to 2006.
What was the movement's first incarnation and what was its focus?
The beginning of, these ops are someone comes in, and they'll either be in one of the IRC, which is a chat system, they'll either be in there, or they'll be just posting directly to something like a 4chan, back then anyways. And you had to be anonymous on this website. So when you posted, the name that showed as the username of the person who posted was anonymous. But someone made a post on there with this joke idea that it's just one person talking to themselves. I don't know if it's someone who's schizophrenic, I don't know what story we're telling ourselves here, but obviously Anonymous is one being having a really bad conversation with themselves. And so we started to draw what would that look like? Who is this person? And we ended up with these pictures of a guy in a suit with a red tie and a green face, and just because there's nothing there because he's anonymous. And for a solid year and a half, it was just about trolling. It was about having fun online at the expense of people who would play along.
Do you remember the shape of the thing in the early days? Like, how many people were there?
Depending on, what day of the week you were on and how much fun everyone was actually happening, it was 5 to 20 people for those first few things. I mean, it grew into a group that kind of called themselves the Internet Hate Machine, and that could get up to 50 people on average in those first, couple of years. When it came time to do a big op, something like, ops people will be able to remember and kind of Google and look at, footage from, like Habbo Hotel. In this game, for some reason, like kids just running around this hotel, and you could go into the pool, which was an indoor pool, and someone figured out that you could actually get people into the pool, and you could fill the whole pool with people to the point where no other player could get in. And for some reason, these kids really liked playing around in the pool, and then had someone stand at the stairway into the pool, blocking it, and the big memes started happening of pools closed. So when you look up and you see some of these early meme images from Anonymous, you see pools closed. That was the origination of that. We thought it was funny as hell.
And do you remember where you were in your life when you first discovered Anonymous?
Early on, like with things, you'll say Habbo Hotel or any of those types of raids, I was just a willing participant. I needed something to do, I was having fun. We got up to some of the more involved ones, like Hal Turner. And that's when I started to take more of an active role of things to do, ideas of stuff we could do to these people. More of an organizational role. With the Hal Turner raid, we ended up going up against someone who actually deserved it. And this was a neo-Nazi radio host who was being a horrible racist person.
I categorize my genre of radio as news talk radio for straight white people. These lower cultures and lower races are more important, and I find that disgusting. This is a symbol of justice. You're going to see a lot more of this in the United States.
We were going up against this horrible racist person because he was the kind of horrible racist person that you could easily goad into responding. And he would respond in hilarious ways.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hal Turner Show.
Hey, Hal. This is David. I'm calling from Florida.
Dave in Florida, welcome to the show.
Hey, so this is my first year in college, and as you can imagine, there are a lot of Jews here.
Okay.
Right as I was about to go to sleep, I overheard a conversation that they were obviously trying to hide from me, the Gentile. One said, "Gee, Brian, what are we going to do tonight?" And the other said, "The same thing we do every night, Vinny. Try to take over the world."
I think you're full of crap.
So suddenly, other people on the internet kind of join up, and the group goes from the 20, 30 people who are in it to about 100 people. Because the guy we're up against, you can actually feel good about being up against. So some people who might have felt bad about some of our earlier trolling, don't feel bad about this. They show up. We grow a little. That turns into the first real time that we know of in a big anonymous op where hacking is a big piece of the op. Someone broke into his email and stole all of his emails. And it turns out, good old Hal Turner was a cooperating informant with the FBI. And we had the emails showing him turning in his neo-Nazi brothers, as he referred to them, to the FBI in order to keep himself from going to jail.
Not exactly a true believer.
Not a true believer. This leads to Hal Turner and friends becoming kind of violent at each other. Leads to him committing acts of violence. Leads to Hal Turner going to jail. So at the end of this Hal Turner op, we did a good act. You have to at least talk about that afterward. And so we did a little, like, do we want to do another one like that? Is there any other bad guy target that we could do that for? Not again because necessarily we want to be the good guys. We're still not the good guys. The internet hate machine is alive and well. But because it meant we weren't getting attacked for attacking them. And in the end, we did a few more, things that were good until we move on to the next phase of things.
So then what was the next stage of Anonymous?
The second stage is really our teenage years. This is when we're really figuring out what power we have, choosing what we're going to do with it. Same thing a teenager does in life. By the end of your teenage years, you might have a career chosen. By the end of ours, we definitely did. And it starts with Project Chanology.
You've probably heard of the Church of Scientology. Everybody's heard of Scientology. The scandals, the brainwashing, the celebrities who were members, etc., etc. Back when Anonymous first started, they didn't yet have this enormous media presence that we see today, but they were still viewed as pretty intriguing.
Know yourself. Know life.
It was a really simple beginning. This post appears with the Scientology logo and a link to a video of Tom Cruise. It's internal Scientology stuff. It's him talking to other Scientologists about how powerful they are.
Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help.
We all think he's insane. The video goes down pretty quick. It gets what we call DMCA'd. The DMCA is a law that any company, any person can use to take down their copyrighted material from a site like YouTube or Twitter or something. But the problem is that the length of this video falls in the clause called fair use. One of their lawyers had to file that DMCA claim and had to file it quickly, meaning they've got lawyers kind of on call for this stuff. If we put that video back up, I bet we can cost them a lot of money. That would be fun. Okay, who has the video? Did anyone download it? No. And through all the everyone happens to be an anonymous, someone who was really good at doxing hunted that user down and got a copy of the Tom Cruise video. We grew to about 200 people in chat, all trying to figure out what's going on and how can they help post this and comment on it and spread it around on social media and just get it out there, right? And so we wrote scripts that would automatically sign up for email addresses on Yahoo, on Hotmail, on everywhere else, and then automatically sign up for accounts on all these sites, and then automatically upload the thing.
It's just
Some guy shows up in chat by the handle Dojo, and he says, you are costing them a lot of money, and the media is now trying to pay attention. But the media isn't really allowed to write about Scientology because they're lawyers, because they're scared of the cost of writing about Scientology. He was like, so could someone write a press release? And the first few of us who were part of that initial little crew, about 8 of us, we started a little channel called Pound Press. Turns out press releases have a very standard format. We can write that. We start writing it. We're about halfway through what we think is going to be this press release when, in the chat, I said, this looks more like a video. And someone else said, this is a video script. And someone else said, I know how to use Sony Vegas. And someone else said, I know how to time this. And someone else said, I can go find us good public domain audio and video from like archive.org and from other sites where they can't DMCA it because it is public. And we were like, we're making a video. And so we spend the next day and a half making this message to Scientology video. The goal of this video is, how do we make Scientology believe that the internet itself is coming for you? I want an ominous tone, something so scary that you think 1 million people are about to show up on your doorstep and that you deserve it.
It feels like you're almost building a character, right? I mean, this goes back to the beginning of Anonymous, where it is one schizophrenic guy talking to himself.
What does that Anon, that green-faced Anon with no picture, what does he sound like? He sounds ominous. And so on January 21st, at about 10:21 p.m., and I know this because, I mean, of what happened, like it burned it in my brain, the video is uploaded to YouTube. We think a few people are going to watch the video.
Hello, leaders of Scientology. We are Anonymous. Over the years, we have been watching you, your campaigns of misinformation, your suppression of dissent, your litigious nature. All of these things have caught our eye. With the leakage of your latest propaganda video into mainstream circulation, the extent of your malign influence over those who have come to trust you as leaders has been made clear to us. Anonymous has therefore decided that your organization should be destroyed.
And so I'm woken up the next morning by my girlfriend on the phone. She tells me the video is live on TV news and that it's all over the place. It's getting hundreds of thousands of views. News channels are now writing about it on their websites and whatnot. I'm like, wait, what? Our IRC server that we were using was not ours, it was someone else's, a little network, and it was offline, and it was our fault. So we had DDoSed, distributed denial of service, ourselves on accident. So we worked to find a setup that would actually host that many people. It took us a few hours, and we went from a couple hundred people to 10,000 people, all claiming to be Anons. Most IRC clients do not like being in one chat channel with 10,000 people all trying to talk at once. So we have to break these people up into smaller channels. How do you do that? Join a channel named after the biggest city near you. That way you were still basically anonymous, but now you were segregated out into these smaller channels. We are in 42 countries in 143 cities. We're like, okay, what do we do with these people? And at that point, they were already coming up with their own ideas. They had started channels, like one was named Pound Target. And if you went into Pound Target, it would list at the top where the hacking targets were.
So then how did that evolve to the real world? Because it did.
Yeah, so that little channel of us starts to grow a little. We hadn't made it private. And it gets up to about 20 or so people. And in the end, we start getting with a little. People have stupid ideas. People have violent ideas. So we decided we needed a secondary channel. And that's when we moved off to Marble Cake. Marble Cake has been referenced in media. It's been a gag in Mr. Robot. It was one of the double password scenes on a phone where it said Marble Cake was the password. That was the name of the channel where we kind of started all the real work. We got in there and decided, what are we going to do with 10,000 people? Sure, they're having fun right now. We could tell them to go do some more prankster stuff, and we did a little of that. But we want something else. We've obviously got a thing here. We've got an army. What do we do with it?
I know we don't talk about groups or leadership inside of Anonymous, but it sounds like Marble Cake, if there was an inner sanctum, if there was leadership, it would be located inside of Marble Cake,
if you're
likely.
Outside of the collective and you've got the mind that the whole world has about how power works, about how structure works, about how organizations run, to anyone in that headspace, Marble Cake looks like leaders. They look like they're trying to run it. If you understand how the space works, we are more of a think tank. We happen to be outputting pretty good content, so people are playing along. The next protest we ask people to do, the next piece of activism, if it doesn't land, if people aren't all in on it, if they say that's dumb, they aren't going to go along with it. But it wasn't that we were in power, it was that we had gathered up so much good talent that what we were pumping out was actually of a pretty high quality, a pretty high standard was being set. And that's when we all started hunting around the internet. We were all just like, everyone just go search the internet for stuff to do with groups that are this big for pranking. But I found a video of this woman named Tori Magoo, a former Scientologist who was out. She was standing outside of the org here in Boston. And she's just dancing and singing out front of their building. And she's corny, and she's saying the stupidest protesty anti-Scientologist stuff you can imagine. And I post the video back into the Marble Cake channel and I say, this is what the internet would look like if it went outside.
And was that appealing to you, that vision of the internet in the real world?
Kind of. And someone else in chat instantly said, every one of the cities we have represented, they have a building in. What if we sent someone to every one of those buildings? We're like, when do we go? Well, not next weekend, that's too soon, but maybe in a couple weeks? Sure, you know? I think it was maybe 3 weeks out that we uploaded the video named Call to Arms.
Be very wary of the 10th of February. Anonymous invites you to join us in an act of solidarity. Anonymous invites you to take up the banner of free speech, of human rights, of family and freedom. Join us in protest outside of Scientology centers worldwide. We are Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We will be heard. Expect us.
The intention being to demonstrate to them, we will not be intimidated, we will not be silent.
We aren't scared of you. Your fair game stuff that all these ex-Scientologists are telling us about, don't bother us. There was a reason the media didn't talk about Scientology. The 1991 and Time Magazine's Cult of Greed article. And when they made this article and made it front page and put it in all the every supermarket right by the checkout, Scientology came after them and filed 386 lawsuits against them. Every sentence in the article got one. They fought and they won every lawsuit, but it was so expensive that they vowed not to do that again, and the rest of the media was now on notice that we will throw millions of dollars in legal fees at you if you even think of saying something about us.
So it had a chilling effect.
Chilling effect, and they don't get talked about much anymore. For over a decade.
You realize there's a little bit of a problem in getting people to talk critically about the Church of Scientology, because quite frankly, they're scared.
Oh, no.
What we have done is so bombastic, so huge, that the media has no choice but to cover it, otherwise they look like they're hiding, right? So we provided this platform in which the media was gonna get to cover them now. And suddenly everyone writes an article at the same time, enough that Scientology can't go after them all.
And was this the point at which the mask was introduced?
This was the point at which we first realized we had made a horrible mistake. Because not only were we sending all these people out who had no idea how to protest or how to do it right or how to counter the Scientologists making them angry or anything else, they were supposed to be anonymous. We realized the mask had to exist in every city we were gonna protest. We had to call every one of them and find every comic book shop, every costume shop. What masks do you have in stock? Which ones are cheap because none of us are rich? And it turned out that every city in the world was overstocked on the Guy Fawkes mask because they all thought after V for Vendetta that everyone would want one. Nobody did.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
Every costume shop, every comic book shop, they all had those in stock, and they all averaged out after foreign exchange conversions to about $10. It was the only mask we could choose. So I went out and bought that one at Newbury Comics here in Boston and came home and showed it to everyone on camera. I was like, this is what we're using. We're done arguing. It's been hours. It's the only choice. You all know it. It's practical. Let's go. We're done here. And a couple years later, I had a friend paint it for me with a custom paint job. And I really love it. I love the look of it.
Did you think anyone would actually show up the day of the protest?
No. Absolutely not. Especially protesting on a global scale, which involves time zones. We didn't understand what we were asking of everyone to be there at 9 a.m. It meant we were asking for them to be staggered instead of all at once around the world.
Sure.
What we figured out with only an hour to go was that in 1 hour here in Boston, at 8 p.m. the night before, it was going to be 9 a.m. in Sydney. Meaning if anyone in Sydney could get pictures up quickly, we were, before we went to sleep, already going to see the first protest. We think, okay, if 5 to 10 people show up, holy crap, that means we might get 300 people worldwide? Oh my God, that's amazing. We were fully expecting a bunch of us basement-dwelling incels to show up, and instead it was everybody that showed up.
We just want to talk. Knowledge is free. Knowledge is free.
Do you remember where you were in your life when you started this protest? What were you like?
Very bored. Didn't have much going on. Needed something to do. And then, all this came about. And then very quickly, I was not bored anymore. It was overwhelming. I'd never organized a protest. I'd never gone up against something this large in any kind of a public space. I was not prepared for what was coming. This is the building. This multicolored corner piece here was the Scientology building in Boston. The first place I ever really feel like I protested. This building used to have all the markings of a Scientology center on it. So you used to have the logo right over there where the dog logo is now. You used to have an S above the door. Used to say Scientology on this. Like, you used to know walking by this what the building was before they lost it.
Put yourself back on that day, your first major protest that you helped architect. What was it like? Paint a picture for me.
That first day was absolutely crazy. The first thing you see is that this really is the internet outside. These idiots, these people who are nothing but meme lords and edge lords on all these horrible websites are out here wearing wigs, masks, things that you asked them to do but you didn't think they would. They're jumping up and down, they're screaming at the top of their lungs, they're singing horribly memey songs that really have no business out in public. They are playing music. They are dancing, and all the thoughts going through my head are, what have we done? Who are we, and how did we do this?
Explain to me why you were protesting. Like, what were you hoping to do? What were you aligned on? What was the long-term goal?
Very early on, the plan became, how can we cut out the recruiting? How can we make it where no one wants to go in this building? And you know what? If you stand outside of a building acting really stupid, saying the dumbest things, holding signs that say things that are obviously memes from the internet, no one wants to go in that building. So while we were here doing what we were doing, no one went in that building for recruiting. No one was taking any of their little pamphlets they were handing out. It was over. And when they couldn't afford this building anymore because no new people were coming in, they had to go. And this building now belongs to someone else.
At that point, did the thought remotely cross your mind that maybe this battery cell was amassing some power here? That maybe this thing that you were a part of could potentially grow and have power in the future?
I really wish I could tell you that I had any idea what we had actually done that day. But in all honesty, when you're looking at an event that you planned and you expected 20 people to go to, and there are 200 to 300 people, at locations where you expected 5, there are 1,000 somehow, you don't know what to do. So in that day, it took about 8 hours after the event before I really started thinking, what have we done? Who are we? How many people around the world had actually gone to these events? And we started calculating numbers and figuring out, maybe this was gonna be a thing. Maybe we had an army. Maybe we could aim it at things. Who knows?
At a certain point, or I'm sure at many points, it got personal, including when you met your wife. Could you tell me about that?
The point that I first met her, she was going by the name Blue Wig Girl and had this big blue wig she would wear that totally changed her hair color and everything else, and this look about it, and would sometimes wear a lab coat with it, like looked almost like Blue Wig Scientist kind of a thing. She definitely had a look and a vibe about her. It did not take us long before we were wanting to move in together, before we were wanting to do everything together, and about 3 years later, we got married.
There's the stereotype of who Anonymous is, right? Young, male, living at home, no social skills whatsoever. Anonymous is also me at 24, I want to say 24, 25 years old, with a toddler and an infant in tow. And then here comes the internet. unabashedly a bunch of assholes. And they're like, hey, we're gonna go be assholes at these guys. You wanna come be assholes at this? And like, that sounds like a lot of fun, actually. Yeah, I have to be a responsible parent. I have to, you know, do all these things. I've been trying to be good my whole life, and like, f it. Let's go ruin that guy's day. That sounds like a really good time, actually. And that was the draw. And for so many people, that was the draw. It was the lulls.
Do you remember meeting and what that was like?
We started talking on IRC. Everybody was on IRC chatting. And, you know, after protests, we would hang out. He was, you know, the traditional anonymous hacker on steroids. And I was not, and I still am not. I know how to edit functions.php such that it breaks on a WordPress, but other than that, I'm not really your girl when it comes to coding. But my job, as I came to find my place there, was in organizing and propaganda. We hadn't learned some of the really hard lessons that Anonymous taught us, because we were still in the middle of making those mistakes and learning them. We were very high on like, we're gonna be the bad guys and it's gonna be great and we're gonna be jerks for justice.
And the numbers were gigantic. Thousands of people all over the world showed up. We didn't know what to do with that. We spent days trying to debrief on what that meant, what this was, what we had. But we had one trick up our sleeve that was very important. And we learned this from the Greenpeace guy. He said, here's how a protest movement dies. You throw a really good protest and everyone goes home. The end. Here's how a protest movement lives. At the first protest, you have a select group of people, at every one of them, who are handing out a flyer that no one's ever seen before that tells them about next month's protest. So you better have next month already planned with a theme, artwork, videos done before the first protest. Because what it does is in someone's mind is it changes the go home from that was a life experience, I'm gonna remember it till I die, to what are we doing next month?
To a movement.
Exactly. If he hadn't told us that, we would not have done that.
And so riding high off the success of that initial protest, close on the heels of that came Titstorm.
We are actually months into this now. We've done 6 protests. We're not thinking about taking whatever we've built and going up against other things as the apparatus that we've built. We're just thinking, what's the next month for Scientology stuff? When an Australian kid shows up in chat and he said, hey, I'm in Australia, the Senate's about to pass this really stupid law we don't want passed. You're internet people, you probably don't want it passed either. Could we start a movement? And everyone's like, what?
Australia's new Labour government plans to make ISPs carry out 2 different levels of internet filtering.
The clean feed is broader than the prohibited sites. You can't opt in or out of the prohibited material.
But the internet industry, adult industry and civil liberties groups are not happy.
He says enough shit that someone finally says, I'll introduce you to someone who helps organize that kind of stuff, and they introduced him to me. This guy from Australia starts telling me about the law. What they want to pass in this bill is Saudi Arabian, Chinese, Russian style internet filtering. Their argument for censorship was that if women with small breasts, A cups or flatter, smaller, were seen on the internet naked, men would see that and start down a path until they ended up pedophiles because they liked small breasts so much that they now liked children.
This is wild.
Wild, right? We're like, that's not how anything works. So they pre-poll down there, and it looks like this is gonna pass, like 82% it's gonna pass. This Australian's not happy about that. What can Anonymous do to make it stop? Nothing. What do you mean? What do you want from us? Well, I want like a press release and the press to actually tell people about the press release. Well, one of our writers is online. One of the guys who wrote, you remember this press release from this op? Yeah, that was great. I guess I can ask him if he wants to help you. And then he's like, well, are any of your video people online? Yeah, one of them's online. And then one of our graphics guys, then one of our flyer guys, then one of our online kind of promotion guys, then one of the guys who, like me, has all the media contacts, because I've been sharing with a couple people. I leave. I don't know what I've done. I just put a bunch of people in a room together because I had somewhere to be. I wake up the next morning, though. their videos playing on the news on ABC 8 down there.
Your choice to make moves against the pornography industry are not the sole focus of our actions. Rather, this is the final straw in a long chain of choices that inform us that you are preparing to censor your people.
Their press release is printed in the morning papers, and there are people already in the streets in front of the offices of some of these senators down there who are fighting for this to get stopped.
I think it was really easy to sell to people because, like, the Australian government is trying to censor our internet because of porn that they don't like. And, like, we're anons. We don't like people censoring the internet. And we like our porn, so, like, yeah, this is, there's some synergy here. And it's funny because, like, we had one person who was there who really was like, this is our first time going up against a government. We need to behave, we need to be good, we need to be serious. And I'm like, no, we are stick with the brand. And the sentence that I fought for got quoted everywhere, and it was the right move in the end, but, like...
Do you remember that sentence? What was it?
The Australian government will learn that one does not with our porn. And they were like, no, we gotta be serious. We gotta be serious, you guys. No, we don't.
So about midday, I get a phone call from this kid. He sounds 18, 19, but he says he's an aide to someone in Parliament in Australia. I want to put the senator on the phone with you. Oh, okay, cool. This guy gets on the phone and says, you know, he is who he is. And I'm like, great, you know, whatever. What do you want from me? Stop it. No. It's like, well, you can't tell me no. You guys are committing crimes. I'm not committing shit. So he says, what do you need from me to go tell them to stop? Because it looks like they've already gotten into some emails. It looks like they're already, like, starting to get into places we don't need them to be. It's not just people in the streets. It's now your real hacking is starting to happen against sitting government officials. What if you told me you were going to go back and talk to everyone, and you were going to make public statements today saying that this bill isn't going to pass? What if you were thinking it over and you needed the weekend to think about it, and new statements would come out on Monday, then the vote happens and it doesn't pass? He says, you're telling me we're all going to get hacked if we don't do what we're told. That's extortion. You can't do that to me. I'm not telling you anything. I'm telling you what might work. I'm giving you a suggestion of a path forward. I can be your intermediary. I will go talk to them, but this is the offer I think they will take. He says, all right, we're going to talk it over, but it's already, like, late at night here. Can I talk to you in, like, 4 hours? Some of us want to rest. What do you want from me for that 4 hours? And he says, I don't care if people are in the streets, I don't care if you're talking in the media, but if you've gotten anything you think you want to leak, could you not leak it for, like, the next 4 hours? Just give me that. We don't do shit to them but the standard real-life protests of people with signs outside, some news interviews over the weekend.
The government says it is collaborating closely with the internet industry.
A couple websites go down from DDoSes that weren't really under our control. Other hackers did those, but nothing gets leaked. The vote happens on Monday and the vote doesn't go through. We won the fight. A fight that I didn't know we could even have. I got a thank you phone call from this guy in government down there saying, thanks for working with us on this one. If this ever happens again where we're here, could you call my office? Like, do I have a direct line to you now? And he's like, yeah, my aide's gonna give you a personal cell phone number for them. And if you ever need to tell me the Australian government is about to get in serious trouble, tell me. And I said, I'm not gonna tell you before if I think you deserve it. And he said, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for if you think we can stop the bad thing from happening that's upsetting you, please reach out. I'm like, great, that's fair. After going up against governments, we decided it was time to go up against more government things. Over the next few years, the governments all around the world, European Union, America, tried to pass all sorts of laws. SOPA, PIPA, ACTA, these were all the acronyms for them. Most of them were censorship. So we organized around those and had some protests that had hundreds of thousands of people at them. We do end up at things like Tunisia at the beginning of the Arab Spring and actually playing very active roles in all of that. NATO has put out documents about us, describing us as a threat. The UN has put out documentation explaining to UN member states what could be going on in the future based on what they see in us. A journalist named Barrett Brown had put out this post online talking about how Anonymous's tactics would be used to take down nation states in the future. We knew what our power was and we were going to use it. You know, and that's a whole different headspace to be in. But we hit this point where the FBI wants anyone in any leadership position. And a lot of companies in government service, especially in cyber service, who want to work with government contracts, come up with ideas and then pitch them to, you know, the government. Can I land this contract, right? So this guy named Aaron Barr, working for a company called HB Gary, does tons of research correlating logins to all kinds of systems, from Facebook to IRC to when tweets happen, and trying to attach identities to these anonymous usernames. And he builds this list of, you know, 100, 200, whatever, I don't remember the number, of Anonymous's leadership and all its key members, with the cities they're in, their real names, their phone numbers, you know, whatever he could get, right? And a journalist, Joseph Menn, he writes an article for the Financial Times talking about and interviewing Aaron Barr for this thing he's made where he's gonna, you know, expose Anonymous. Are his methods good? Has he found us all? And HB Gary starts literally like an hour after that article comes out. There's a channel on an IRC server, and we're all just like, you know what? All that's actually necessary is to get a copy of the document. We'll see whether he's got gibberish or whether he really found people or not. Now, they are a contractor, HB Gary Federal, whose major job and contracts with the US government are securing their web-based applications and infrastructure from hackers. So it takes the hacker crew in HB Gary about 5 minutes to get into their network, which should show you how secure our government operations are. And within another 5 minutes, they're searching around file systems for this file, and they find it in an email attachment, and we all start looking at it. None of this data is real. We start looking at the real names he's applied to these people, and it turns out most of these real names are people who have never even been an activist, let alone been around Anonymous. So now we're kind of getting indignant. We're kind of like, well, we were doing this to save our own asses, but this mother is going to take all of these people and hand their names over as possible anonymous organizers to the FBI. Every one of them are going to get a file, they're going to get visits, they're going to get investigations. None of these people deserve that. We've got to make a joke out of this person. We've got to make everyone know his methodology is stupid, his list is horrible. So we send his list to the media and say, publish it. Nothing on there is right. And then the hackers, of course, go to work on that network. By the time they're done with HB Gary, they've dumped all of their emails. We're in their networks, we're wreaking havoc. I mean, even Aaron Barr's iPad at his house has been wiped and reformatted. Like, he's lost everything. At that point, Gregg and his wife show up on our IRC. They are tech people, they can find us. And they're like, please, can we talk? Can we do something? They're making all kinds of promises about this is not gonna happen. We're not talking to the FBI about you guys. And we're all like, the list isn't even good. Please give it to them. What happens next is one of the other programmers out of that 800 people says we should all be able to read all these emails and builds a little web interface and imports all the leaked emails. And people like Barrett Brown and a few other journalistic types who can somehow not lose their minds staring at gigs of data start digging through it. And this is when a lot of things start to change for how Anonymous works. We were messing with HB Gary because they deserved it. They came at us, we came at them. Fair. That's the battle you chose, not us. But now you look at those emails and you start seeing what they're proposing to other groups. What requests are coming for government offices for bids on projects that are related to cyber. And you start finding things like the Air Force asking for a persona management project so they could manage tons of fake profiles in other countries so they could start to sway the people's beliefs about America and how good we are in those countries with fake people. Not allowed to do that. That's not a thing they're actually allowed to do. And that's really kind of the big start of just all-out hacktivism. It explodes from there into the thing that the whole world started watching when they watched Anonymous show up in support of WikiLeaks, when they did the PayPal op, when they did the Amazon op and the MasterCard and Visa op. All of that came out of this HB Gary kind of a realization of the power that we had, because that was one of those key moments.
And that paves the way for where we are today. So how many people identify as anonymous today?
We have no idea. What we do know is when you look at the ops that have happened, when you look at the groups of people, it's surprising the places they all kind of, collectively are. Like, Brazil has the biggest current collection of Anons, really using the name and trying to do actions. Be it saving the rainforests, be it working to support the poor and underprivileged in the favelas, be it anything they're really doing against the corrupt governments, all of that type of stuff. But the real answer to who is anonymous today is anyone who says they are. If you say you're anonymous, if you pull up the mask, if you use our logos, if you use the name, then you are. We can't tell you you're not. Nobody owns it. You can today go to a non-ops IRC and you'll find the Op New Blood people. And their goal is to take someone who shows up and says, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'd like to get started. And they're going to find out what your skills are, what you want to learn, where you should be, who might be working on those projects. They're going to help you on your path into this world. I was in my late 20s, early 30s when I started finding this. I'm in my mid 40s now. I've grown up. I'm an adult with kids, right? Things have really changed in my life. But if you think about that, that means there's thousands of other kids who grew up in Anonymous who are now adults with jobs. They're now in state houses as state reps. They're now aides in Congress. They are now, some of them, running for congressional seats. They are in positions of power at corporations. They are journalists all over the place. There are editors-in-chiefs at nationwide publications that people would know if I said them that grew up wearing a mask. I've pitched at a television network a possible TV show with a friend. And afterward, one of the producers at that network took me to their office and showed me the mask they used to wear to protests. We are literally everywhere.
It's got to be a trip going from a place where, you were a criminal hacker to almost you are rehabilitated by Hollywood, where you are consulting on major streaming TV shows, major premium cable TV shows, and they are basing characters on you, where you're getting interviewed and your exploits are romanticized by the media. To what do you attribute that evolution in the way that you're framed by the media?
The media is an interesting case with me because, initially I get out into the media because Scientology, one of our first big enemies, spends a lot of money to identify me and put me out in the public and put my name and my face and pictures of me and take me to court and file charges, and they're trying to screw me over. And hackers are now kind of in chic. They are now kind of popular. Every TV show needs a hacker storyline. Movies all have a hacker. White House Down had the hacker going into the basement. This is from a friend of mine, Bo Willimon from the House of Cards TV set. This was on the hacker in that show's desk. The poster is from a documentary by a good friend of mine, Brian Knappenberger. I was in the documentary for quite a lot of it because, of course, I'm there for the beginning of all of this stuff. The front row of my first time talking at South by Southwest had Quentin Tarantino in it, staring at me. He had questions. It was crazy. People want to know how we got here, what the story is, why suddenly, in the last decade and a half, there's been hackers everywhere. It's been fun.
What have you sacrificed for your hacktivism?
I've sacrificed career. I've sacrificed stability because doing so many things that could get you arrested at any moment, doing things that you actively know you're getting arrested for throughout your life, really makes it hard to be a dependable employee. So I've had to do a lot of freelancing. I've had to do a lot of finding my own work, a lot of stuff that's more stressful. So I do think I've lived a much more stressful, anxious life doing this because, one, the people you've done things against might be the kind who retaliate, might be angry. Two, financially, when I say I have no money, I mean there's negative in the bank, right? I mean that. I have a lot of fun toys, and you can see some of them behind me. That's because in this space, I seem to have garnered a name for myself, and I've got fans, and when stuff dies, when I can't do the work I do, when I can't do even the live streaming I do, those fans step up and are like, what do you need? So you've got to be very protective of your family, of their involvement in things. It's been a ride getting to this point and doing what we have.
It's hard for me to divorce the activism from being with him. And, sometimes when we talk about our relationship and things, he will say that, he couldn't have done this with somebody who wasn't also involved in these things, because it's everything. We have to be up on Saturday to do this thing. There's going to be reporters showing up for this. I need to do this thing. I need to stay up till 3 in the morning because that's when people in this time zone are, and that's where the op is, so I have to be there. It's our whole lives. To marry somebody, you're choosing every day who they are and what you're doing together. And yes, you're gonna learn and grow and hopefully keep growing together in the same directions. But I can't think of it as a sacrifice. He's awesome. And I get to be with somebody who's that awesome. Like, anybody would pick that, I think.
And what's your role in Anonymous today?
I would say my role is somewhat unaffiliated at this point. I still consider myself anonymous. I still feel like part of the group, but I try not to get too terribly involved because I am so watched and so monitored that a public one, it might be bad to have me around. That isn't to say that I'm not involved in stuff. When you do this type of work over many years, you gain a trusted inner circle of people that might no longer identify with any one group because you're not posting publicly about what you're doing. You're just getting done. And I definitely have a group of friends who might be getting done.